Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Lifting. Today's episode, or at least this portion of it, is recorded on 9/12/23. This is actually one of those Journey to Self videos that we did, the PowerPoint. This is number 3 on that list, and it is Journey to Self, Ego, and Co-Creative Abilities, and Co-Creative Forces, excuse me. This is an earlier one that we did. Yes, I know we did a YouTube episode on the pitfalls of the ego, but this was an older rendition, and it seems the information seems to be just fine to me. What we are doing with this, like you saw with the other two so far, is we are adding on a new channel and affirmation and blessing, and of course a new opening and closing of the circle, which I cannot reiterate that enough, especially on some of these older things. So at this point, I open the circle to true benevolence with no conflicting agendas. So Joanna, you want to do the law of one?
We are all one, and when one is harmed, all are harmed. When one is helped, all are helped. Therefore, in the name of who I am, and I am one with all there is, that only the highest good be done. We pray for all of you, your friends, your family, your loved one, to let healing energies in. Let it love you and nourish you and bring you to your highest good. We ask now for benevolence to come in. We ask it to join us, be it friends, family, loved ones, with those with no conflicting agendas, guides, galactics, to please come in and join us now for this conversation. We ask for malevolence and mischievous beings to be escorted out so that this communication and this conversation can be had in the truest of forms without interference. So with that, and with acceptance of the blessings that we've sent to you, please be in agreement by saying, so be it.
And so be it. So I will now play for you the original PowerPoint we did in 2018. So enjoy.
Hi everyone, and thank you for listening to this video entitled Going into 5D, This Journey of Self, Keys to Moving Forward Part 3, Ego and Co-Creative Forces. I am Joanna Michaels, and along with Christopher Jacobs, we were called on a mission to help people understand the world around them better. This video is part 3 of a 5-part series that we put together to help you understand the skills and expectations of self required to navigate within the new energies streaming into our reality. We hope this series will empower you to feel confident in your abilities to understand and create the world around you as you desire.
Who am I? My name is Christopher Stephen Jacobs, and I have been psychically inclined all of my life. My guides made themselves known to me at the age of 5. When I was younger, they came to me in dreams as well as my imaginary friends. Sometimes we just played and others showed me things, took me places, and educated me on how our unseen world looked. It was hard for me because I thought everyone saw the world this way. I grew up going to Catholic school, and their doctrine certainly did not agree with my perspective, so it was challenging. I was not alone. My mother, Katrina, was also born with these gifts. So, as you can imagine, our after-dinner conversations are not quite like most families. We have always had guides, and different people come in to speak. My skills took a great leap after an accident where I was struck by a car while walking across the street. I was technically deceased for approximately 1 hour, but to me, I was in a new place surrounded by guides for about 2 weeks. When I awoke back here, it was a surprise to the ambulance staff. After a few months of being a jumbled mess, my traditional psychic skills of a medium enhanced to talking to the greater galactic community. I also learned how to bilocate, heal others by removal of oppressive technology, heal others by delivering healing energy, and learn to interface in a defensive posture when needed. Since 2013, I have been speaking on multiple shows giving information on my understanding of the world around us. Now that my feet are wet, I am being called to lead a discussion on what knowledge I have been given. So here we are. I want to take a second and acknowledge all of those worldly and off-worldly beings who have graciously encouraged and assisted me to this moment.
And I am Joanna Michaels. My calling began in my adult life, and my psychic abilities turned on in my adulthood. I have always had a strong intuition, but my abilities to have visions and see entities did not come in until the last 5 years. Up until that point, I was always called to be within the medical field and spent the last 10 years as more of an educator. It became an easy transition to take the skills I had acquired over the years and now transition them into this all-important area of our lives. In the medical field, we would refer to this third of who we are as the psychosocial side of ourselves. And although it was known to be so important, even the medical worlds did not truly know how to fully integrate this into the medical model. My belief is because it would require a conversation of who we really are, energetic beings, and how we are really masters of creation. And this was not a conversation that was ready to be had. So as Chris said, we were called to forward this conversation to truly help people become more whole and realize that they can truly take charge of their own lives and create the world as they want. It is our hope that you will find inspiration, peace, and a better understanding of what is occurring in our world in this day and age and how to navigate successfully in it. In order to understand our website and teachings, you need to know our perspective about humanity's journey, be it personal, societal, or as a whole, as well as our perspective on non-earthly beliefs, be it ghosts, guides, or the galactics. We believe we are living in unprecedented times. A time where individuals can rise in vibration and gain more mastery of the world around them, as well as our slow introduction into the cosmic community. As we stated before, we have been in an overall learning experience with the theme of going from darkness to light. And we have been in a class of learning about ourselves by being in a contrast or duality. Now those that are ready to move into a new class will begin to learn about unity and love. The transition between classes requires us to drop some of the learning tools used in the previous class. Duality was a learning tool and not the ultimate in understanding. So in the transition, things become a bit more gray instead of black and white. And then we start to see and understand others' perspectives, moving us into learning about unity and love. In part 1 and 2, we discuss some of the important skills required to move into these new energies. No one is exempt from learning these skills, and all will grow at their own pace. In regards to everyone's fascination with ETs, learning these skills are required to move into the galactic community. So, disclosure is directly tied into earthly humans beginning to learn these skills. And why? Well, for example, think telepathy. The galactics may just be better at reading you than you know yourself. Not only will it be confusing and frustrating for them, it will be a safety and protection issue for you. So we hope you are working on your authenticity, protection, and discernment skills, as well as learning to work within your own heart space. In today's session, we will discuss the all-important ego as well as co-creative abilities. Many would think, what a combination of discussion, the ego and then co-creating? How in the world do these things fit together? So first, I want to say they are completely related and both necessary in being a balanced individual. Oftentimes, people have thought that the ego is actually a negative asset to have and keeps us from co-creating. But in our opinion, this is a complete misunderstanding. So let me explain. As we have said many times, we are energetic beings currently encased in a human DNA skin suit. And so a part of our experience is to be in a human DNA skin suit and learn to take our energetic self and explore everything through the skin suit. And let me say this again, to explore through the skin suit. Many people have learned how to pull their energetic self out of the skin suit and explore through consciousness only. But believe it or not, the goal is to explore while being in the skin suit. Does this mean no more out-of-body experiences? No. What we are saying is that the goal is to expand from the DNA skin suit without disconnecting. What we want is to learn to go from here to there with the full knowledge of the path we traveled. Not to just be here and then there with no understanding of the in-between. And think of this another way. If you pulled yourself out of your body and now are there, and you are responsible for protecting yourself, who's minding the DNA skin suit and protecting it from harm? Your guides? Well, maybe before, when you did not understand your responsibility to yourself. But in these new energies, no. Now you have to learn to explore within the DNA skin suit and learn to expand out, not disconnect. So, what is the ego about? Simply put, its function is to protect the DNA skin suit. And that function, that feedback is needed and will always be needed while we are in the skin suit. The ego operates at the level of knowing what will cause harm. Recognizing harm comes through the mind, and the mind determines what is harm based on knowledge and understanding of the world around an individual at the level of consciousness and knowing the person currently possesses. So, personal awareness directly affects how the ego operates. Knowing and understanding the world around you better will give clear definition to the ego on when it is the right time to give an alert of potential physical harm. Conversely, not understanding the world around you, being confused, feeling unempowered, and not knowing who you are gives no guidance to the mind or ego. And so the manual default mode is employed, and the ego tends to see almost everything potentially leading to harm. Was this by design? Of course it was. The darkness knew it could keep spiritual growth at bay with an ego in the manual default mode. Again, causing separation and having a media designed to instill insecurity and fear is all about reinforcing this. So let's start to untangle the huge ball of mess. So this is where most of the human race finds themselves right now, which again is having an ego with no guidance, and thus it is acting in a default mode, that fear of everything mode, to give all potential bodily protection. This is why people come to the conclusion that getting rid of the ego is the way to go. Yes, these people recognize a problem but we believe in their assessment. They did not understand the true connection between the energetic self and the DNA skin suit that has within it a mind and ego, and the functional interaction between all of these pieces. So the goal is to understand the components, and that we need to provide guidance to the mind and ego to come into proper balance. Then the ego can function properly, because in all actuality, the ego is meant to be the human skin suit's best friend, its protector. We acknowledge all of the historical approaches to describe the complete psyche of the mind with descriptions such as id, ego, and superego, and any other new terms as separate components of the whole mind psyche. For us, much of this is describing different phases of learning instead of separateness. So when we use the word ego, we are referring to all. And understanding the purpose and function and appropriate integration of the ego will affect all areas that others have compartmentalized and bring all into better balance. So, how do we go about providing our ego with appropriate guidance to operate? Well, we have to know ourselves and the world around us better. And how do we do that? Well, you have heard us said this before: authenticity, living in the moment, discernment, knowing your core beliefs, all lived within the heart space. So there is really no way around it. You have to know yourself. So this brings me to what the ego is not. The ego has nothing to do with confidence. Confidence is something we are all striving for, and we should, and it is good. However, since many in society have their ego in default mode, even someone speaking in confidence can be threatening. And since many have determined that the ego is bad and another with confidence is threatening, then both are combined. And then these people with confidence are seen as egotistical, when truthfully, if really defined, the person thinking the other is egotistical is really saying, your confidence threatens me. And they are really working with their ego full on. So this is an example of a detangling of thought that must be done. Strive for confidence in understanding yourself and the world around you better. This will then give better guidance to your ego. True bodily threats will become more defined and refined, and this is good. Building confidence will be a trial and error of learning. Sometimes a 4-year-old will state with great confidence in being able to ride that bike without help, only to fall within several feet of trying. But other times, their confidence is sound as they impress all the parents around them with that great skill. So confidence tempers the ego to allow for growth. Again, the goal here is balance between confidence and impractical feats that could cause physical harm. But right now, most people are not having to hold themselves back from impractical feats. It's day-to-day living that is hard with so many perceived and not real threats. So most could use a dose of confidence. Next, the ego has nothing to do with benevolent assertiveness. Having the confidence to state your truth and claim the right to state your truth is also something we all should be working on. And for the same reasons as the ones showing confidence, Those demonstrating benevolent assertiveness cause fear in many others' egos and thusly are labeled egotistical as well. And as I said before, this is actually backwards because it is the one making the accusation that is actually working with an ego in default mode and perceiving a threat that is not there. So think about this. What in the world does stating your truth and not being afraid of stating your truth have to do with bodily self-protection? Nothing, really. However, in this tangled ball of mess we are in, we have been shown physical, malevolent assertiveness that can cause great harm to a body, and the physical assertiveness oftentimes initiated when someone spoke their truth. Think, for example, of those in history put to death for speaking their truth and refusing to do otherwise. So, the ego, left in default mode, can think all forms of assertiveness can lead to physical harm, and thus it wants to shut it all down. Which leads me to bullying. Bullying is technically a type of physical and psychological assertiveness. However, it is not the type of assertiveness we are striving for. This is where language is limiting, because this type of assertiveness should be separated from confidence in speaking truth. But we are left with only one word to describe a multitude of types of assertiveness, which can certainly be confusing to the ego. Bullying is based in fear. Fear that if the scales are allowed to be on an equal and even keel, that the bully will be left out, not acknowledged, not seen, not wanted, and feeling completely out of control. All of these thoughts are based in fear, which then becomes their reality because the bullying leads to the fears potentially being realized, the proverbial dog chasing his tail. And in truth, an ego completely out of control. The bully is the one with the ego out of control. We innately see this type of behavior, the bullying behavior, as not good and potentially harmful to the body, as we should. But again, an ego with no guidance will protect by calling all types of assertiveness as a threat. So think on this and detangle these thoughts about assertiveness. We all need to strive to be assertive when necessary. So we need to work on the larger understanding of the ego and its role, which is to protect the human DNA skin suit from dying. Again, the goal is to grow and explore and learn while we are in these skin suits. We are not discarding them. So we need the ego to help us be aware. As we move more into 5D and explore, we will begin to expand and a need for safety to let us know when we could be pushing the limits with our physical DNA skin suit. Our energies left unchecked can absolutely burn out the body. And as I alluded to before, you are expected to protect your own skin suit. So I would highly suggest not leaving it vulnerable somewhere as you are flying through the universe. So work on knowing yourself and then knowing the world around you better so you can provide the mind and ego with the appropriate instructions. Now that you know the true function and that there is an ego default mode, you can gain control. For many, It really won't be that hard. Just explore why something seems to make you think of a potential bodily harm. Why does a thought or situation feel threatening? Just awareness of this will begin to untangle some of this. And untangling this is important to move into the next area of learning or relearning as what we're really doing. Being in balance and working in partnership with your body and ego allows for the fun of what is coming now in these energies. And that is actively co-creating.
This is the brief channeling that I am bringing through based on the ego. I will see who wishes to speak. All right. Let's see. Who wishes to speak? Naya? All right. Get ready here. Explore yourself, and you will find that this trickery regarding ego, meaning separation thereof, is not what it appears. It is of the bad guys' ploy to get you to fight with yourself by saying you must get rid a part of yourself and give it to them and send it out into the universe. No. This is part of the New Age doctrines. This is just as much trickery as your Christian doctrines, and so on and so forth. Separation from ego means you do not care about yourself. Remember this. Next time you say you're going to separate from your ego, think of it as giving away energy. Think of it as killing a part of you. It is a part of you that is involved in self-preservation, balanced with soul. It is just fine. Remember this and deny the known, as these people would say. Thank you.
Another one of the least understood abilities we have is that of co-creation. We work with the universal forces to bring about experiences we want. We came in with this skill and then have slowly lost it. On a very fundamental level, we do not understand this concept. So we want to start a dialogue so you can think a little more about this subject. Besides being masters at co-creation, unfortunately, we have also been manipulated at times to use our co-creative forces to bring ourselves undesired experiences or experiences that benefit others and not ourselves. The universe is always listening for your call on a new co-creation. But the universe is quite literal and very observant. Not only does it hear your words, it measures your thoughts and feelings. And if your words do not match your thoughts and feelings, well, it goes with what the overall impression is. The universe and guides also know what your desired experience is. So the universe will not deliver what is contrary to that main objective. So you must exhibit what you want now in order to obtain it. What do you think, feel, smell, sense, and daydream? Do you worry all the time? Well, then the universe thinks that is your desired experience, and so it will give you more. So see how an ego on autopilot can set yourself up for potentially undesired experiences. Again, the dog chasing its tail. Do you see yourself as poor? Then the universe will then think that is your desired experience and give you more of that. Are you wanting abundance? Well, then the universe hears the word wanting, so it gives you more of what you want, which is wanting. Do you see yourself as ill? Good health is hard to find when you see yourself as ill. So you need to change how you perceive experiences to co-create what you want. How does being happy taste, feel, and smell? What are the visions you could think of in your daydreams? Bring in what you want by going to the end, already having it. What does that feel like and taste like? What are those types of interactions with others like? See yourself in joy and happiness. Daydream it in. But let's be honest. How can someone even begin to daydream in anything they want? First off, let me say that changing perspective to what is a higher good experience for you requires that you know yourself in the current present moment and then reflect to see what in you needs to change. For example, please ask yourself, am I always wanting? Do you spend your time looking around and wanting good health, money, possessions, what others seem to have? I think many of us can reflect and say that we seem to have a theme of wanting. It sounds funny to say you can bring in what you want, but you cannot do it by wanting. And again, this is where we can say that language is limiting. And that is because everything we do, even speaking, the literal words have a vibration. Want and wanting are not the same. If you say you want something, it has a frequency of recognition of a desired experience. But wanting has a frequency of the desired experience of not quite getting that experience. So you have to tell the universe that you are done with the experience of wanting. And to do this, you have to bring in all the qualities of what you desire. So let's use something familiar. Let's talk about a job where you have an occasional group work meeting. Currently, you hate attending because there is always dissension and the topics are boring. You roll your eyes every time you think about that next meeting, and you know you are not alone and not the only one who feels that way. Folks even talk around the water cooler how they hate these meetings. Can you see at all the possibility that you are co-creating that experience because you believe what will occur? And if multiple attendees feel the same, well, then you've got a group co-creative event going on. So, in the possibilities of co-creative skills, what if you and potentially others started to think of other experiences occurring at the meeting? What if you pretended in your mind the next meeting of having laughter and goodwill and respect? Then what if others started doing the same? What if you talk to your friends and decide to share the same vision of a good and helpful meeting? What would that look like? What would be said? What would make others feel respected? Do you think this is a possibility? And if you say no, then why not? It happens all the time. Let me give you another example to ponder. So let's talk sports. Here is where it happens all the time. Do you really believe that some teams just have talented people and those talented people are the only ones responsible for a team's long winning streak? Really? You mean no other person on any other team has such talent? Come on, look at the stats. Are there really great differences between the players? Honestly, I dare say no, not really. Not in the professional sports. Now, I will say that great lengths have been made to make sense of it all, and so it seems that these minute differences in stats must be the answer. But now that you know we are energetic beings and a lot is unseen, well, ponder this deeper. So what is it? Maybe it is that the skill these people have, plus all the fans surrounding them, not the physical skill you are thinking of, but the skill of co-creation. And this is where things like confidence and benevolent assertiveness comes into play. I win because I know I can win and have the skills to win, and so I win. Bottom line, this is the mindset of winners. And it is not just words, but feelings and unwavering beliefs. Then add fans who believe the same, and winning streak ensue. And it seems to continue until doubt enters. So conversely, if a player or team or fan base feels that somehow their team is or has less, well, they get teams that fit those thoughts. And this is exactly where the miracle comes from as well. From the players and the fans who can see the last minute home run and win as that final player comes up to bat. And this energy is greater than those who see the strikeout or defeat. Or the not so fit or disabled player that saves the day to the delight of all. Because for one moment of time, most everyone desires that this person, who does not always have it easy, to have a moment of great joy. And this is blessed unity consciousness at its best. Sometimes it is us and not other external angels or entities that create our own miracles. Now, for some, I know this may still seem hard to grasp, but darkness knows this very well. Darkness keeps control by creating an environment that people adopt the mindset of, this is how it is, or it will never change. The truth is, if you have a mindset like this, then you will certainly keep that creation going, because it is how it works. If you cannot imagine a different existence and accept what is, even if you dislike it, you will keep it as it is. Because what you are actually telling the universe is that you want to experience dislike. And this is where most humans are right now. Dislike, but a sense that it is what it is and I cannot do anything about it. And this is where we say no. Learn the skills that can set you free and learn to co-create to get what you want, not what you don't want. Using your imagination to co-create something actually takes time to ponder this and bring it in. It may not take much time, but it takes some. So darkness is doing everything to keep you from having that time. Now people can keep themselves filled 24/7 with technology with no time to spare. But we know that much of this is just distraction to keep you from looking inward and creating a richer experience. This is where understanding and self-responsibility comes in. No one can do this for you. No parents, no friends or family, no guides or other benevolent entities can co-create for you. Even the darkness uses trickery and deception and oppression to get you to use your co-creative skills to do their bidding. The source gives no entity the right to completely overpower you. So, if you have had enough and wish to be sovereign, you now need to know and understand the principles we have been sharing and have to be responsible for your own experience. This is where we are all heading. The relearning of many skills that will move us into more of the desired experiences we want. Our advice is to start simple. First, know yourself and your thoughts and how you think and perceive at this given moment in time. Are you wanting? Are you feeling constantly jealous? Are you feeling constant anger and hatred? What are your feelings? This will let you know what you are actually co-creating now. Then think, what is the desired experience I want? And then you bring in those feelings and specifically what is going on to give you those feelings. For example, I want a loving relationship. So what does that mean? Describe it. For example, I can see us in the kitchen joking and laughing at those funny cat videos while I cut up veggies and he is at the stove because we love to cook together and we both adore those cat videos. Then, what else in that relationship brings you joy? See yourself in it. Describe it. Write about it if you need to. Bring it into your imagination. Do the same for all experiences, work, leisure time, being around others. Describe what you want as if it were a story you were writing from a wonderful memory. Create that memory. Start small if you need to build your confidence. Once you have shown yourself you can do this, then you will be off and running again. In truth, we are all just beginning to understand actually how we co-create. And it is our understanding that we are beginning to co-create at a faster rate. This may be why we get into a pickle at times now, because we are co-creating and don't quite have the hang of it yet. We have said before that the darkness is very aware of how we co-create, and they use that to their advantage, getting us to co-create what works for them and keeps us from growing. What we have been experiencing and learning in more depth about now is how we as individuals co-create rogue, unhelpful thoughts, which then gain enough power to become an actual rogue being at times of ourselves that cause problems in our own life. To the extreme, it feels exactly the same as an oppressive being, but it is actually something we created ourselves. It's actually a part of ourselves. And this is a challenge for our guides because they see these things as us, so not overage, although overage could have assisted in their creation. So let me give you some simple examples of how this occurs. Let's say you feel you need to be speaking and expressing your spiritual thoughts. If you have had a lifetime of not being listened to or felt always unheard, a thought gets created that you will not be listened to or heard. Now, darkness may jump on this bandwagon and help its creation further along. So by the time you feel you should be doing some public speaking, there is a counter rogue thought of your own that fights to ensure it does not happen, and a stagnation occurs instead. Another example is when you feel you need to be creating an item that will help others. If you have a history of starting some projects and not finishing them, or have started things before without much success, you will start a thought that the same old failure will occur. So why bother? This again is something that darkness can jump on and exacerbate. As time goes on, the thought takes life and is now warring against the creative force in a person. Another example is when a child feels there is a monster around to hurt them. This thought begins to take hold, and with the help of darkness pounding that thought in for sure. Then the child creates the monster, and even scratches can appear. These are examples of rogue thoughts that we create, and we have to learn about them and how they come into being, and then undo them and stop creating them. So first off, you must be aware of the potential for this to happen. And of course, you must know yourself better. Then you must be on the lookout for contrasting thoughts. Sometimes I say it is like you say you want something, and then in the next sentence, you put up roadblocks of why you cannot or should not attain it. At times, oppression was putting in these contrasting thoughts. At times, oppression may have initiated putting these contrasting thoughts in. But unfortunately, they are our own thought forms, and we must handle these ourselves. Then we suggest that you request an audit of your current present moment self to help purge yourself of unwanted rogue thought forms. From what we have been told, there is a need to recognize at times that you are dealing with your own thought form. But then, once acknowledged and with an audit, it can be purged. We also tell people at any time that they are doing an audit that you also request that any current missing spaces from the audit be filled with source light for only your highest good. You should recognize a clearing because the contrasting thoughts don't come into your mind like before, and you will seem to find more confidence and willingness to pursue your desire.
All right. This channeling is going to be on rogue thoughts and co-creative abilities. We will see who wants to speak on this. All right. Isaac. All right. I'll put him here. I'll try to keep this brief. In your society, you have a concept known as a poltergeist. People associate this with ghost activity, when in fact, it is actually a person's rogue thoughts, creating an echo back on themselves and the people around them, friends and loved ones alike, even total strangers, even people that you do not like. A contrary rogue thought could send a co-creation out to that person or group and actually do harm in that respect. This was considered demon activity as well, and this is actually closer to the truth because your own co-creative abilities are being used against you by a programmed rogue thought, or thought form, as you call it. Thought forms come in all variations and wavelengths and frequencies. In this, each one of those partial and full frequencies contain a program harmful to your current present self. Therefore, revoking these with your own co-creative abilities, taking control of your own abilities, your own life, and your own self, will eliminate this rogue thought form activity and what people call poltergeist activity. Now, this usually centers around children, given the connotation of the word. The reason this seems to be more potent around children is because, think of this, not just in poltergeist activity, at least known poltergeist activity, but think of this. You tell children, excuse me, there are interruptions in this. You tell children that there is a monster outside waiting to grab them if they run outside in the driveway, or in a pool, or in an alley, just because you do not want them to run outside where they can get hurt. A child fully believes this, even though it is not true. But since that belief is absolute, it creates a rogue thought form in which generates a monster out of their co-creative abilities. So be careful what you tell your children is true and not true, because they are more in touch with these abilities than most adults. This will change in the coming years. I'm Isaac, and I thank you.
Thank you, Chris, and thank you all for listening. We hope you have enjoyed this video, and we hope you join us for our next discussion on dream time and the subconscious mind. If you have any questions or need psychic services, please contact us at thelifting2017@gmail.com. We can aid on the clearing of oppression and work with you on the personal internal tools to create a sovereign life. Pricings for these services can be found on our website in the Services tab, and the website is thelifting2017.wixsite.com/thelifting. And again, thank you for joining us today.
Okay, I hope you enjoyed that. This is actually a pertinent topic. I know it needs to be retouched on again and again, but for references, we did the YouTube episode, The Pitfalls of the Ego. We did also that update there, of course, but we are also updating what is on there, on this one. And what was said on Rogue Thoughts, all of that is still true. The challenge by Isaac, all of it still holds. So some things change, some other things stay the same, and this is a stay the same. So even though our knowledge and perception and perspective surrounding it increased, it still holds. So with this, we'll bring in a brand new channeling on these topics. Have a third channeling attached to this. So who is it that benevolent, of no conflicting agendas, wants to participate? I know we have tightened our circle here. We have, of course, Isaac, that's still around. We have Force People to Talk, Elaine and Vessa. But is there anyone else within our newly formed tighter circle that wishes to talk? And if it's one of our regulars, that is absolutely fine. So Isaac? Oh, yeah, Isaac, you want to do it. Okay. Yeah, okay, all right. He seems to be the crown king of doing conspiracy sector episodes too. So let's see. Isaac, yeah. Yes, shut up and do it. I know. The waters are rougher today, so I will be brief. This was smart of you to, as he would say, blow through this because of some of the minor instances around the area at the time of this recording and the previous recording he'd done with myself and others and Ryan and such. But this, I will say that the information on this does still indeed hold. You do not necessarily need to anal retentively view it and review it with a fine-tooth comb. This is actually, some things are timeless, and this is one of them. So I will just go straight into questions.
So I think I would like to chat a little more. We've spoken on the ego before. We did another show on the egos that Chris is going to attach as well. But let's go into co-creative abilities a little bit more. Especially over these last few years since we did that previous recording, it seems that there's been, in my opinion, an uptake in trying to get people to co-create poorly is the best way to say that.
Yeah.
So I want your opinion on things that are going on and what you're actually seeing from your perspective.
Yes, so many people are indeed co-creating poorly. Yes, this is a judgment call based on my observation. Elaine and Vesa, forest people, any of them would actually say this as well. Even from Asgardian sources, all of them would actually say this. People are being turned into what he likes to refer to as meat puppets, whereas it is the programming, or you call it the Mr. Smith programming or Agent Smith effect, where it drops into people, gets them to commit an action and or said actions verbally and or physically in any given situation. And also there are certain beings out there that, even though it's not completely 100% true in all negative cases, there are some that need to hijack your co-creative abilities, not only in the consent realm, that is co-creative consent because of the COVID issues, but with this, it is more of speaking for being in a particular tonal frequency, thereby which you are co-creating what they wish. A show reference would be the show Forever Night years ago about a vampire cop where he became possessed. The tonal frequencies within the possession or the demon that got within him were able to influence, using hijacking his hypnotic ability to get a criminal to commit suicide versus surrender for arrest. This was the underlying undertone of frequency that was heard more by the person, since he already had suicidal tendencies to begin with, they found out in his record. But the point is, that's a beautiful example of that type of hijacking, and you are seeing this more and more and more of ill co-creations, or just influencing the person to say stumble a little bit.
Right. And so again, to help people understand, when this type of influencing is going on, what would be some of the basic signs and symptoms for people to recognize it so they can stop it?
The behavior of the person either will drastically change or slightly minutely change depending on what has possessed or is oppressing them. Example of this would be also a sudden drain of energy, would be shifting in mood incredibly quickly, sometimes either cold to the touch or burning hot to the touch, depending on the entity. Sometimes that's has to do with the faster, slower moving frequencies, but it can also be of the makeup of the being. Like for an elemental example, with himself, he's slightly incompatible with larger elementals physiologically, so therefore the blood pressure goes up. It does not mean that they are negative, but if something is possessing, you'll see these changes. Sometimes they can bring about sickness. In the case of some insectoid beings, they can, and also with demonic ghouls and mimicker demons, they can bring about, and also Draco reptilian, they can bring about ill moods, depression, sadness, and anger. Now, I'm not saying these are the only things, but if it's a sudden shift, boom, boom, switch track, their mental capabilities are being hijacked, and the brain juices, let's just say, or the chemicals and acids, amino acids they're in, and gray matter has been switch tracked. These are classic examples. They're also, say, stumbling as if they are drunk. Now, this could mean foods and the chemicals in the foods as well, but this also can mean an overabundance of certain vitamins, or they can be an underabundance of this, that causes susceptibility to these things and can cause sudden shifts in mood and also fear as well. And I slipped and said moon because some of it is actually being caused from this particular source and the AI sources. And you called the AI God, which I'm not giving it that much credit, but for sake of argument, yes, in a 2001 Space Odyssey type of reference, yes, I will give it that a little bit of that credit historically, because it has posed as such and still does. But in the case of sunbeams, they that are also being experimented on, these things will happen. Quick moods, also the inability to say leaves one's house. Some people are naturally hermits or introverted. This or extremely extroverted. The extremes of both of these behaviors, or the quick to shift between them, like in a bipolar or a pendulum swing sense, or a more of a schizophrenic bipolar type of thing. If they have something already that's a slight imbalance, it will be exacerbated and or accentuated in some fashion. So this is a symptom of that hijack.
Basically, again, because again, so much has happened since we recorded that. I mean, so many years have passed, and especially the last few years. It would be understanding and not necessarily a big possession or whatever to be feeling down, to be feeling strained, to be feling some of these
yes,
things.
because of the AI and also retrograde garbage and all this other stuff, and also the thought forms of everybody, especially in 2020 when everybody was co-creating all the fear and such. Yes, and amplified by AI. Yes,
exactly. So again, we're not saying anybody who is now having a little bit of a struggle, but what's really being said is kind of a bit of a dramatic change would be one of the problems. I think the interesting thing, though, in this, and sometimes in the subtlety of it all, and I would like you to address this as well, that sometimes in the subtlety of it all, when that pressure is just applied and applied and applied, and again, we're talking about mental strain, we're talking about family strain, financial strain, and everything that's been going on in the last few years. I think you do become susceptible, of course, to getting also into a ill-productive co-creative way, because it's hard to get some of these thoughts from circling in your head. Do you think that's as well?
Oh, and narratives and such, yes, ill thoughts, but also they might try to get people to think like if you're actually thinking the proper thoughts in a certain way, like say anger appropriately, happiness or sadness appropriately, they'll try to get the people around you to also think that those are symptoms of oppression and possession, when it is not, too. They'll try to get people, if they're just holding their ground, oh, you must be possessed. No, that is incorrect as well. So sometimes it can pendulum swing to that too.
And exactly. So to me, I guess, and again, and you can talk to this as well, to be in a better co-creative way, really in these last few years, you really do have to work on knowing who you are to know what you are not. Because if you would generally say in the years past or whatever, in general, I liked people in general, I always could find joy even in the littlest things or whatever. And you've had years and years of pounding. You have to now look at yourself and say, is this really who I am now, or is this not? And then find your way actually to finding things of joy again, because that
creativity and passion. Yeah.
Correct. And so if you don't mind speaking a little bit more, because I think a lot of people are in the doldrums right now.
And also you'll see some people, not necessarily just in the New Age community, they'll be guilting those that are in the depressive state, or saying, well, you have a lot to be happy for. You have this to this, and you should be more creative. That's not always helpful, like you see on those creepy commercials that are on, but about depression and whatnot. And there's still truth to that. But at the same time, as he said, sometimes you have to fight past the tendency and just do the thing anyway. There's also the ego, is involved in this, because that's some of the warrior spirit is in the ego, where you use it where appropriate to endure through a situation. But you don't want to co-create more situations by which you have to endure and struggle through as well. Also, the creative and joyful aspect, there's a phrase, if you're not in joy, what are you doing wrong? That sounds almost like a guilt trip to me, but on the flip side, there is something to be said by finding those times to do just that.
Exactly. And again, I think for a lot of people, that's where, we need to encourage the baby steps of maybe getting out of some of these moods. Because if you just enjoy driving around in your car, looking at things or being in nature, and you find yourself that now all of a sudden you've become a big hermit, you need to look at that contrast and try to get yourself, baby step yourself back out into nature or back out into the things, or grow that garden or do something that brought you actually joy and happiness. You have to reflect to look at what's changed over these last few years in yourself. And for a lot of people, there has been a lot of change. So we just want to, I just want to encourage everyone to take a look at themselves now and just make sure that they aren't necessarily doing things that could be co-creating actually for someone else's agenda and not theirs.
Yes, you have to be very careful of this. What he calls a meat puppet routine, or being a meat puppet. Yes, I found this funny, but at the same time, this is so very, very true. Whom do you serve? And also, this goes under the service of self, service to others declaration. Now, people have gotten this flipped to a certain degree. Being selfish doesn't always mean you're not helping others, because if you're helping yourself, you're more qualified to help others, just like the phrase, God only helps those who help themselves. But at the same time, service to others doesn't always mean that you're constantly sacrificing and not helping yourself. So these two are interchangeable. And this, they've always attributed service to self as evil and ego. And this is a New Age community that's done this in service to others as being righteous, selfless, and sometimes basically what, how would you put it, self-anointing or righteous in some fashion, like, oh, I've done this. That's ego still. So, but in a bad way. In some areas. What I'm trying to say is these two things are interchangeable, and if any beings show up and any people show up saying they don't have an agenda in life, they are lying through their teeth. So in this, when you say service to self and service to others, what do you actually mean? I know what some people are meaning. Service to others means you're always giving others, but doesn't mean you don't give back to yourself. People are taught that they're not supposed to refuel. Service to self, they're always taught that that's egocentric and wrong and evil in some way. You're not supposed to do things for yourself. That is also wrong. They both fall under ego. Oh, I can't take from, I must always give, I must always drive forward. Ego. When service to self, oh, I must always it's always considered to be, I must always take from others. I must always I must always just think of myself and not others. That's also ego. But if you interchange them, you will see it's one solid thing. If it is applied differently in its vernacular, meaning you must help yourself in order to help everyone around, or plant the fires and seeds of information to change the energies to the millimeters and centimeters, it applies to both. But people have this black and white perception of, oh, you're selfish, therefore you don't help others, you're just reclusive, you're just this. That is one aspect of what people know, just like with service to others, one aspect of what people know, but ego can drift between the two.
Well, thank you. Well, I know it's a little quirky out there, so I'm just going to give you any last moments that you want to say something, and then we'll be going on our way.
Yes, it's actually good that these things are being reviewed. Of course, he is anal about who said the message, and he should with certain specific beings, who I'm speaking about. But not necessarily with everything, because that particular being was actually more neutral based at the time, not necessarily turned like he saw at that time. It was just more of like what was the thing to be said at that particular time, and it just happened to match something that was good, so it's fine. And some fairies will match whatever the person's saying, and some will give you real good nuggets of information. It just depends on the thing. He even saw this morning there was a fairy in Ryan's space that was more of a dark fae that was actually bogging down an entire building with a little teeny little turd about this big. So that can happen. Misconceptions across the board. He was even saying the people in Ireland are scared of all fairies, and they have their fear is slightly justified. And this is also a misconception, but also falls under co-creation, because what are you co-creating by thinking they're all bad? That they take on sometimes what people reflect out, and they will come back with the negativity as well. So what are you co-creating? there are bad ones, there are good ones, but if you think it's all bad, so therefore they are taking that on and reflecting that back at you. Some want to do it to help, others do it just because they're dicks. So this is what I wanted to add to that because it was pertinent to the conversation. So thank you, everybody. And he was right. I did find this creepy little thing that was a classic fairy, looked like what they showed in the movie Bright, excuse me, not Blight. I guess bad ones are Blight, but Bright is the name of the movie about fairies and elves in modern day, police and cities and shops and all sorts of stuff. But the fairy they show in it, they're creepy little things that get hit with bug zappers and everything. They were making a joke there, but that's the kind of one, if you watch that movie, that's the kind of one I saw this morning. So, and was being a little turd that I had to get rid of, and it bogged down an entire building. And there, some of the ones in mythology, like the ones that look like that, are known for doing that and messing with people's co-creative abilities. So, and known for taking children and all this. And it's a very real fear in Ireland, I found out right now. And it's co-creating a lot, but some of the fears are, it's ill co-creations, but it's also, this started with a very real problem. And some of the changeling stuff, I'll add this real fast. Some of the changeling myths are alien abductions and grays, but there are also some of these fairies that will possess people and then take their place, kind of like in the synth mythology, where an AI would take them over and they would be the replacement for, or doppelganger. It falls under that, and then co-create differently on behalf of that person. So this falls under that category. So I believe this is good where we are. If you want to do the last affirmation and blessing.
Yes, we wish you peace and joy out there. We wish that you take the time to remember who you are, so you know that who you are not, and always healing and blessings coming your way. We hope you enjoyed this conversation and this review of old materials, and we look forward to talking with you again.
Yes, thank you, everybody. I now close this circle in true benevolence with no conflicting agendas. So thank you, everybody. Bye-bye now.